Hey guys, Wolf here. For those of you who've been following along, today is part 3 of the League Strategy Series. We're going over the UU tier today. As I mentioned in the last video for OU, we are going to be doing these once a day to finalize them out in time for the weekend. So today will be UU, tomorrow will be RU, and then the last one will be NU on Wednesday. So now that we've gone past OU, you've gotten your first 3 picks. Hopefully you've gotten a core at least started. That's the goal. If you don't have one finished, you should be able to have one finished definitely by the end of UU, or else you're going to have a little bit of problems. By core, I mean basically you need something that you can build around, something that complements each other. Mega Manectric and Gliscor was the example I used yesterday. Because Mega Manectric takes care of all the water types, takes care of the ice types with overheat, things like that. Gliscor takes care of absorbing earthquakes, stuff like that, because it has flying type. That's the kind of thing you need to be doing when you're building your core. For those of you who didn't get megas, UU actually has a few megas worth using that are actually decently well. Mega Ampharos is a big one. Decent defenses, excellent special attack, decent move pool. It's got a few things available to it other than the standard discharge and stuff like that. I mean, it's got rest and sleep talk, as was used just recently. It's got Cotton Guard. Got most of the punches. Yeah, I think Fire Punch, Thunder Punch. No Ice Punch though. I mean, on the special side, you got Focus Blast, you have Hidden Powers, you have Power Gem, even if you needed a Rock type, just to kind of kill the flying types you're switching into, as well as Thunderbolt for the obvious picks. That doesn't have a huge move pool, but it can take a decent amount of hits because of its typing being Thunder Dragon. I'm sorry, Electric Dragon. I don't know why I said Thunder. And it's got a couple options available to it. Not nearly as good as something in, say, OU, but it does get the job done. Another one of my favorites, aside from Mega Aerodactyl, also fine in this format, would be Mega Sceptile. Mega Sceptile is amazing, and the fact that it can run a physical or special set, even though its stats are obviously lean more towards special, but it has the capability of running both because it has a very wide move pool. You have things like Bullet Seed. I think it even gets Seed Bomb on the physical side. Things like Power Up Punch, Night Slash, stuff like that on the physical side, along with Home Claws and Swords Dance. So it can Swords Dance up. And then special side, it obviously has Giga Drain. Things like Leaf Storm, stuff like that for the special side. So very well rounded. Grass Dragon just means another 4 times weak to ice, which most dragons have anyways, so you're not really gaining or losing anything. The ability Lightning Rod probably won't come in used very often unless you mega early, but if it does, you're going to benefit very well from it, from that special attack boost, so keep that in mind. And then the other one I wanted to point out, the third one, being a top 3 for this one because there's not that many available, is Mega Houndoom. Mega Houndoom doesn't get a lot of rating in ladder because the ladders are very unfriendly to it. You got things like Feraligatr, Stealth Rock Weakness, stuff like that. I mean, Salamence with Earthquake and Scarf. A lot of that stuff really hits it hard. But it's got decent stats. It's got 140 special attack, 115 speed, decent defenses at 90. Not spectacular, but they're survivable. The big thing is it's actually got a decent move pool. Things like Fire Blast, Dark Pulse are pretty standard among his typing. He's got Nasty Plot. He's got Shadow Ball, Sludge Bomb. He's got excellent utility like Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, even Sucker Punch if you want to run Sucker Punch. So, I mean, he's got a few uses available to him. He's got a little bit of extra coverage. The big thing is he does have Nasty Plot. He can be a good Nasty Plot sweeper. And with his ability Solar Power, it's actually going to be doing a decent amount of damage in the sun if you wanted to run that. So, definitely keep it on your radar if you don't have a Mega yet by the end of OU, because it is possible to draft and it can do very well for you. Now, as for the actual top 10 for the non-Mega picks, it's actually really hard to make narrow it down to a top 10 because there are a lot of really good things in UU. OU is basically your power picks, stuff like your setup sweepers, things like that. UU, on the other hand, this is where most of the hazard setters are, the stealth rockers and stuff like that. This is where most of your bulk is going to be at. Things like Mega Aggron if you needed a Mega, or Cloyster with 180 defense, Double Aid with 150 defense, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of bulk in this tier. So when you're building your core, you should be thinking of the defensive end of your core for UU. Getting that hazard setter, because the best hazard setters are in UU. If you don't pick one up by the time you leave this tier, you're going to have to deal with whatever's left in RU. So keep that in mind when you're picking. The list itself is tailored a little bit, kind of leaning towards that. A lot of the top 10 happen to have the ability to stealth rock as well, so don't worry too much. As long as you follow the top 10 list, you'll be alright. So, number 1. I better get a drink first real quick, because I'm going to be talking for a decent amount. Oh, I wish I wouldn't be so sick. Alright, so number 1 is Infernable. Yep, it's able to be everything. That's the benefit of it. Infernape is widely considered to be one of the best Pokemon in League in general, let alone UU tier. Specifically because it's got so much versatility. Its stats are built 104 attack and special attack, 108 speed. They're built to be able to run anything you want to run. In terms of abilities, Blaze and Iron Fist, you're almost never going to use Iron Fist, I should say. Iron Fist should only be used if you use at least 2 punch moves, say Mach Punch and Fire Punch, if you choose to use Fire Punch for whatever reason. If you don't, you should be using Blaze almost every time, because Iron Fist mathematically doesn't give you as much damage as Blaze might if you end up being at that lower health. So, move pool is very tailored to physical or special, with a little bit of a lean towards physical, because he's got things like close combat on the physical side. He's got, Flame Charge for speed, Flare Blitz for the extra power, Power Up Punch, Shadow Claw, Rock Slide, Earthquake. I mean, he's got a lot of coverage available to him. He's got Thunder Punch as well, if you wanted to run Thunder Punch, Stone Edge. Excellent physical move pool. His special move pool is actually not bad either. He's got Focus Blast for the physical side. A little bit lower accuracy, of course. He's got Overheat, Fire Blast, Nasty Plot even, along with Swords Dance, so he can boost up on either side. Access to Taunt as a fast taunt user, always appreciated. He's even got things like Stealth Rock. If you really wanted to run Stealth Rock, he does have the ability to run it. There's my Stealth Rock. Went right past it. It does have Slag Off for healing, although realistically its defenses aren't high enough to take much use of it, so don't try and get cute too often with it. Things like Endeavor, as a suicide lead with a Focus Sash, are somewhat possible because it has access to Endeavor plus Priority, which is actually somewhat nice to have in your trick bag if you need to use it for whatever reason, because then you can you can generally stay in on a lure, Endeavor it up with your Focus Sash, and then Mach Punch it to kill it. So, excellent Pokemon. Definitely one of the top 3. The first 3 that we're going to go into in UU tier are what I consider the Trinity. They all work as a team together, they all counter each other's checks, and they also take care of each other's weaknesses. So, after Infernape, our second one, none other than Hydreigon. Hydreigon is probably one of the premier special attackers in UU, bar none. Excellent special attack, decent stats across the board. Not spectacular, but decent, almost hitting that 100 speed tier. Access to levitate, which isn't totally bad. The big thing that I like to point out with him is that he can run physical or special. He does have the attack to be able to run a decent physical set, not a spectacular one, but he has excellent coverage on the physical side if he wanted to. He's got access to all the elemental fangs, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, Thunder Fang. He's got access to Outrage, got access to Crunch. So he has the coverage ability to run a physical set if you wanted to. He's even got things like Head Smash. He's got Earthquake. I think he's got Stone Edge as well. So Superpower even. Access to a lot of stuff available on the physical side. So don't just count his special side because it's the most common, because he can run either or. On the special side, sorry, he's got access to the standard, Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, Earth Power, Fire Blast, Flash Cannon, Focus Blast. So many options available to him. Very flexible Pokemon with a lot of coverage available to him, and you can use that to your advantage in League. Third up out of the Holy Trinity, my boy Mamoswine. Mamoswine is fantastic as a Stealth Rock user and one of the best Stealth Rockers in UU. He's got excellent attack. One of the most powerful Ice Shard users in the game. So he's definitely going to have the strongest priority against those dragons and stuff like that. He's also got 2 decent abilities with Oblivious, which makes him immune to Taunt, which is great as a lead. He's also got Thick Fat if you want to run a more offensive variant and take out that fire weakness. In terms of stats, 80 speed is not fantastic, but most of the time if you're running a lead on him, you're running a Focus Sash. Very rarely for the offensive version you'll run a Life Orb. Almost never see a choice item on him. You can run a choice scarf by all means, but most of the time he wants the extra coverage of being able to do things like Earthquake or Ice Shard or something like Stone Edge, Stealth Rock, Knockoff, Superpower even. Pretty standard stuff. Not too much to really look out for here. The most standard stuff is usually Ice Shard and Earthquake, and then everything else is usually just fit in if you need it. Overall though, great Stealth Rocker to have on your team. It is an Ice type, so if you haven't picked one up yet, you definitely consider picking this up really early on in the UU tier because you really want to get that Ice or Fairy type for dragons. Fourth on the list is my other major attacker that I love in this set, in the UU tier, and that's Salamence. Salamence has 2 great abilities in Intimidate or Moxie. Generally the bulkier versions with Leftovers or Life Orb and Roost and stuff like that, they'll run Intimidate since they can take a few more hits. Moxie is generally for the choice item users. Scarf, for instance, is a huge one. Scarf Moxie Salamence is very hard to take down unless you have priority Ice types or priority Fairy types, faster Scarf Fairy types, things like that. Otherwise it's very hard to take down, especially once it starts rolling. So, excellent choice Scarf user. Excellent coverage as well. His stats allow him to run physical or special as a mixed sweeper. 100 base speed is perfectly good. In terms of move pools, it's got all the common stuff you really want out of your physical dragon. It's got Dragon Dance, it's got Dragon Claw, it's got Earthquake, it's got Stone Edge. All the standard stuff. In terms of taking out those say Ferrothones or something like that, you have access to Flamethrower or Fire Blast or even Fire Fang if you wanted to keep it on the physical side. Otherwise, Outrage if you really want to go crazy. For the most part though, even though he's not as flexible, he is a huge threat, and that's why he's at one of the top 10 lists, because so many things just can't deal with a Scarf Moxie set. It just does so much work for your team. In terms of 5th, we have my favorite special tank, Gudra. People tend to sleep on Gudra fairly easily, but I don't ever sleep on 150 special defense, 90 base health, with an assault vest, because this thing has the coverage move pool to be able to run assault vest. It can tank so many hits that it has no business taking. Things like Ice Beam from a special attacker does crap to this with an assault vest. It does something like 15 to 20%. It's absolutely absurd. In terms of abilities, all 3 of them technically could be useful. Most of the time you're going to be running Sap Sipper or Gooey though. Sap Sipper obviously for the grass Pokemon. Does have an offensive move pool as well if you wanted to take advantage of the Sap Sipper boost. Otherwise, Gooey is the other standard one that I like, especially in League, because speed control is actually very useful in League. Hydration is really only useful if you're running a Rain Dance set, something like Rain Dance and Rest, similar to how Manphy runs. In terms of move pool, I mentioned that it can be physical or special. Special move pool is fantastic. It has access to Bolt Beam coverage plus Fire Blast and Flamethrower, so you got the trifecta there. You have access to Focus Blast. You have access to, Dragon Pulse, Draco Meteor, Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave to take care of the fairies it's luring in, things like that. On the physical side, it's got Superpower, it's got Outrage, Power Whip, Fire Punch, Earthquake. I think it gets Stone Edge too, but I'm not sure. It might not. Does get Rock Slide though for rock coverage. So it's got a lot of options available to it, especially Power Whip. Power Whip's fantastic, especially after the Sap Sipper, because most of the time they're going to switch out from the grass type into a bulky water that has Ice Beam, and Power Whip just obliterates them. Otherwise though, one of the best Assault Vest users in the UU tier, certainly your best special tank available. So if your team is a little bit heavy on the physical side and you need something that can tank special hits, Gudra's your person to go to. Next on the list, a partner in crime to Terrakion, Cobalion. Same type of things that make Terrakion so good, make Cobalion good too. Access to Justified, 2 times resistant to knockoff, 4 times resistant to Stealth Rock, makes it fantastic for coming in multiple times. It's got the benefit of being able to run a little less offense and a little more defense than Terrakion, which means it's perfectly well split to run physical or special, unlike Terrakion. Which means it's got access to Calm Mind, it's got access to Swords Dance to be able to boost either side, it's got a decent move pool to be able to run either side, Focus Blast, Flash Cannon on the special, Close Combat and Iron Head on the physical, Poison Jab, take out those fairies, things like Stealth Rock, Rock Polish for speed boost in addition to Swords Dance. It's got access to Thunder Wave, Volt Switch for momentum, even Zen Headbutt and X Scissor if you need coverage, as well as Superpower. Overall, just excellent move pool. Very good at being an unpredictable Pokemon that can either Stealth Rock, be a team support with things like Thunder Wave, Stealth Rock, Iron Head, Close Combat, or even Volt Switch. Very good at being an offensive setup user as well if need be, because he's got decent defense, which makes him very well put to stay in against a lot of threats because of its typing. So overall, very good pick. These two are kind of cheating because similar to the Lottie twins, there's 2 different ones, Porygon Z and Porygon 2. These are actually, they fulfill 2 different roles, but they're both very good at it. Porygon 2 being a not fully evolved type, one of the best users of Eviolite in the format, with its abilities like Trace and Download, almost guaranteed to get something relevant. Access to the same move pool that Porygon Z does, which is actually a pretty massive move pool. Bolt Beam coverage, Nasty Plot, The defensive version, Porygon 2, is actually a better Nasty Plot user because the offensive version is a better choice item user, so it doesn't really have access to Nasty Plot a lot. But you have access to, you know, Psychic, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, a lot of the stuff that you want access to when you're running a wide coverage set. Things like Thunder Wave has recover for recovery in the mid to late game. Gets things like Trick, even if you wanted to do a Trick Scarf set on Porygon Z. Porygon Z, instead of being defensive, is very offensive. Exceptional 135 special attack with adaptability and Tri-Attack instead of Trace. Adaptability makes Tri-Attack hit super hard. Most Tri-Attacks coming from this thing in a Scarf set or even a Choice Spec set do so much damage. It just obliterates anything in your way. So it's definitely a really good Choice Scarf user, similar to the Salmets. Again, same access to the same move pool. You got Dark Pull, Shadow Ball, Nasty Plot if you didn't want to run a Scarf set, Psychic, things like that, Bolt Beam coverage. So it's got a lot of things available to it. But in terms of adaptability, Tri-Attack is the place to be. That's going to be your go-to move 90% of the time. Things have to be actually weak to the Bolt Beam coverage or something like that for you to want to use it. Otherwise, Tri-Attack's going to come out ahead. The last few, another one of my favorites is Nidoking. Nidoking is probably one of the definitions of versatility in the format. Oh man, my voice is giving up. Very good at being versatile. Very good at being something like a Focus Sash lead. You'd run something like Poison Point. If you're running an offensive set, he's very good at a Sheer Force Life Orb set as well because he has decent speed. Not fantastic by any means, but it does get the job done in the UU tier. 102 attack and 85 special attack. He's actually decent at running both. He has a very good move pool, one of the best move pools I think in the UU tier. Access to just about everything you could want in terms of coverage. Things like on the physical side, you know, Outrage for dragon moves, you know, Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch. Mega Horn, Poison Jab for stab boost, Earthquake for stab boost, Stone Edge. It's also got access to Superpower, as well as, like I said, the Elemental Punches. So he's got coverage for just about everything you could want on the physical side. On the special side, it's pretty much exactly the same. He's got access to Flamethrower, Fire Blast, and their equivalents in both Ice and Lightning, you know, Thunder and Thunderbolt, Blizzard and Ice Beam. So excellent Bolt Beam coverage. He does get Focus Blast for the fighting instead of Superpower. He does get Sludge Bomb and Sludge Wave for the stab on the special side. He's got Shadow Ball. Excellent offensive move pool. Excellent defensive move pool as well. You could run something like Stealth Rocks and Toxic Spikes. You can run even something like Super Fang if you want to invest full in bulk and nothing in attack. Or you want to run like mixed moves like Super Fang and say Sucker Punch to catch your opponent off guard. Gets access to Home Claws as well if you want a boosting move of some type, but he's not really the best use of it because his defenses are not really that great. Access to Taunt as well if you want to do something, you know, a little bit crazy, or you know you can outspeed something that's slower. Overall, but definitely one of the most versatile Pokemon in the league. The other really versatile Pokemon that can be doing just about everything is a Zelf. A Zelf has actually got a better stat move pool than something like Nidoking, you know, 125 split attack, 115 speed. The difference is it's got access to a lot of things that something like Nidoking or Infernape wouldn't. Got access to Dazzling Gleam, you know, Psychic and Psyshock, both screens for Light Screen and Reflect. A little bit, instead of offensive presence, it's got a little bit more utility. Things like Nasty Plot, you know, Taunt as a fast Taunt user. It's got access again to dual screens, got access to U-turn for momentum, thunder wave, stealth rock. Excellent utility type that does have the ability to switch gears because it gets access to the elemental punches, gets access to knockoff, gets access to Zen headbutt, so it can definitely run a physical set and catch a lot of people off guard who are used to just seeing it with a stealth rock and say flamethrower and explosion or something like that. So keep those in mind because it can run a diverse move pool and catch people off guard. Finally on the top 10 list, we have the best of the bulky waters. The UU tier has a ton of bulky waters: Vaporeon, Melodic, Suicune. Suicune is the best at it though. Excellent defensive stats, well-rounded, decent speed, again not fantastic, a good health pool. One of the best users of something like Rest Talk, Rest and Sleep Talk. Access to Calm Mind. Calm Mind's very popular on it too if you want to run like a sub-Calm Mind set. Access to decent coverage. It's got Scald, Ice Beam. It's got extra sensory for all the poison types and things like that. It's got Shadow Ball. It's got Signal Beam if you, for whatever reason, running into Psychic types or something like that. It's got access to a decent move pool. It's not fantastic. It can't really run its physical move pool, which is sad because it has things like Extreme Speed and Iron Head and Ice Fang, stuff like that it could actually take use of, but sadly it doesn't really have the physical attack stat to be able to pull it off well. Instead, you should focus mainly on bulk. Things like Leftovers, Rest and Sleep Talk, or Calm Mind and Sub. Being able to reliably outlast just about anything that comes at you. That's the important part you need to be looking for. Things like Aqua Ring sound silly, but they actually pull off rather well with Leftovers. Gives it 1/8 HP recovery every turn, which is a lot. Access to Icy Wind for speed control, access to all your hidden powers that you want to do. Lots of options available to it in terms of what type of role you want to play, but they're all going to focus on his bulk and making sure that it can take hits. So that's the top 10 list. Like I said in the OU video, just because I didn't mention it doesn't mean it's not good. Things like Mega Aggron, Mega Aerodactyl are fine. Mega Absol kind of is a trap, simply because it's frail as anything. It's really hard to set up a Mega Absol. You really need to get something like a slow baton pass for him, otherwise it's not going to have an opportunity to set up with Swords Dance, and he's just not going to have a chance to do a whole lot of damage. Things like Arcanine. Arcanine are fantastic. I don't mention things like Arcanine or Entei because Infernape does the job better as a fire type, but those are two very good fire types as well that you can snag up if Infernape is taken. Doublade is fantastic as a physical offensive threat. You just have to be mindful of the fact that it's very weak on the special side, so it can't take a lot of hits from things like Shadow Ball and stuff like that. Things like, Chestnut. Chestnut's fine. Chandelure's decent. I mean, it's kind of slow, so that's the main hit against it. Blissey's fine as a special tank. If you need a special tank, Blissey's the way to go if you don't want to have Goodra. I prefer Goodra personally because it gets a lot more coverage. You have access to Crobat. You have access to Feraligatr. Feraligatr being one of the best Dragon Dancers in the UU aside from Salamence. Dragon Dance on Feraligatr with the sheer force hits like a truck. So if you can pull that off, definitely something you should consider. Florges, of course, special tank. Honchkrow, fantastic once you get Moxie going because of Sucker Punch. Excellent utility to it. Does get things like Heat Wave and stuff too. Hoopa, of course, since most people are banning the Hoopa Unbound in the OU tier, they're not really thinking of banning Hoopa the regular in the UU tier, who is still actually passable. It's got a little bit low on the speed, does get a slightly worse typing, not having Dark instead it has Ghost, so it trades out the 4x Bug weakness for a 4x Dark weakness, which is arguably worse. But if you can get a substitute going, it's got an excellent versatile move pool to be able to take advantage of. Things like Crocodile, another stealth rocker with Intimidate. Lucario, excellent setup sweeper, one of my favorites. I simply think that Cobalion is a little bit more flexible than Lucario. Lucario doesn't have the utility of being able to run Thunder Wave, Stealth Rock, things like that. Instead, it's all offense. It's full Swords Dance, extreme speed. Definitely physical or mixed. It's got access to both boosting. It's got Nasty Play and Swords Dance, so it's very flexible. Machamp is fine. Excellent attack. Kind of slow speed, but the fact that it's got no guard means it can throw around, dynamic punches and things like that, no problem. Mienshao is probably my vote for favorite fighting type in the UU tier, though, simply because Regenerator. It has excellent speed, decent attack, being able to run things like high jump kick and then U-turn out to get the Regenerator heal going. Melodic and the bulky waters I mentioned, perfectly fine. If Suicune's taken and you need a bulky water, Melodic's perfectly good. Nidoqueen, more defensive version of Nidoking, doesn't really have the same amount of coverage available to it, but if you really need like something that has a poison type or a ground type and you need a Stealth Rock setter, Nidoqueen can do it. Roserade, great for picking up Technician, hidden power boosts. Excellent at being flexible for things like that. 90 base speed, 125 special attack. It's decent special defense. It's got access to, all the hidden powers being Technician, so it's very flexible in counter teaming, being able to take out your opponent's team with a crucial 4x weakness, say a Talonflame and HP Rock or something like that. Rotom Heat, decent, I guess. Probably my least favorite fire type of the format of the, at least the UU tier, simply because it only has access to Overheat. I don't understand why. So it doesn't have Flamethrower and Fire Blast and stuff like that. So every time you overheat, you got to switch out. Makes it very tunnel visioned. I don't want to connect. I'm not playing. Mega Sharpedo, fine. I mean, the fact that he's pretty similar to Mega Deontay, pretty much has to run Protect in order to get the guaranteed boost. In this case, he needs to run Protect to make sure that he gets the speed boost before he Mega Evolves, whereas Mega Deontay needs to Protect to actually Mega Evolve. Things like Slurpuff, I've seen Slurpuff used decently thanks to Unburden. You run a Belly Drum, Citrus Berry set, get Unburden, max its speed, and it generally outspeeds a lot of threats and can hit things pretty hard with things like Play Rough. Mega Swampert, of course, if you have a rain team going. If you don't, Mega Swampert is still fine. Very good at resisting a lot of things. Gets the crucial elemental, the electric immunity. I don't know why I keep mispronouncing electric types today. Access to a lot of abilities. Decent coverage as well. Things like Tentacruel, best rapid spinner of the format by far. So if you don't have a rapid spinner yet, consider Tentacruel. Things like Rain Dish in the rain make it actually extremely bulky. Excellent special defense and speed. Again, rapid spin, toxic spikes, gets access to Scald, and you can use Black Sludge instead of leftovers, which is just cool because it's better than using leftovers and everything. Toxicroak, generally only useful for its dry skin ability for rain teams to be able to cover things like fairies, stuff like that, since it's a crucial poison type that most rain teams don't have. Whimsicott for Prankster, good at setting up things like Tailwinds. I think it gets Stun Spore, I don't think it gets Thunder Wave. I'd have to check. Let's check right now. Yep, no Thunder Wave, but it does get, Leech Seed, priority Leech Seeds, priority Cotton Guards, priority Switcheroos, lots of priority stuff available to it. Priority Stun Spore. So as a Prankster user, it's perfectly fine. It does get Taunt as well. So it's nothing to sleep on. If you need a fairy type, Whimsicott's fine. I mean, it does have access to Moonblast and stuff. Its stats are not amazing, though. You really got to use him for his utility, or else you're probably not going to get much out of him. In terms of BL2, the lost and forgotten down here. Tornadus with Prankster. He doesn't really have a lot of moves to use Prankster though, mostly Taunt and Rain Dance. So if you need the Rain team, Tornadus is a good pick. Kyurem, almost as good as Kyurem Black. Still access to a fantastic stat pool. 660 base stats in a UU tier is actually really good. 130, mixed attacks, 95 speed, a decent move pool, so it can still pull off a really good, setup sweeper type, wall breaker set. Kingdra, don't have to run Rain Dance with him if you don't want to, although being able to run Rain Dance on him and getting the Swift Swim boost and being able to run offensive or a physical or special set definitely makes him pretty flexible. Otherwise though, I'm not a huge fan of Frostlass. It's got decent speed. It's good as a utility Pokemon, but it doesn't really have a lot of good stats otherwise. Its defenses are pretty low. Attacks are not really that high. So if you really are desperate for an ice type, Frostlass is fine, but it's not necessarily something I'd recommend. Moltres is fine, not amazing. Access to a few moves of note, but nothing too fantastic. It's pretty much a desperation pick if you didn't get any of the fire types we've mentioned already before. I'm not a huge fan of any of the other ones, Noivern, Pangoro, even Shuckle. Not a huge fan of Shuckle personally. He's very vulnerable to status. Zoroark, I guess fine. I mean, it's a dark type, but not a huge fan of that particular dark type. There are a lot better ones out there. Things like Scrafty in the next tier, stuff like that. So that's the UU tier in a nutshell. Again, keep in mind utility is king for UU. So get the defensive utility that your offensive core needs from OU and finalize that core. So when you go into RU, you can just pick up basically all your holes, anything that you think you might need coverage on. There's a lot of things in RU that are only like one type wonders, like Scrafty being one of the only really good dark types, stuff like that. So you need to be able to have a goal in mind going in, saying, okay, I need a fighting type, I need a flying type, I need, an ice type or a water type, to be able to go in and grab the one thing you need to finish your core. But otherwise, I try to think of, by the end of UU, you want to have probably, out of your 6 picks, you want to have 4 Pokemon that you can reliably bring in a wide variety of circumstances to be able to fit against just about any team, and then kind of mix and match the last 2 depending on your enemy's team. So that'll be the UU tier. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the RU tier. If you have any comments, disagree with some of the picks, by all means, leave a comment below. I'd be happy to discuss them. I might very well be wrong on a couple ones, who knows. But I stand behind my picks. I think these are the picks that you need to be looking for, as well as the picks you need to be staying away from. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.